Let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever felt like you had to wear a mask just to be accepted? How many times have you silenced your own voice just to fit in, just to be liked, just to feel like you belong? Live in a world where people are starving for authenticity, but at the same time, they're terrified of showing who they really are. And the tragedy is this: the more you hide, the more you lose yourself. You do imagine something. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing you lived someone else's dream, followed someone else's rules, and played by someone else's expectations. That's not living. That's dying slowly while you're still breathing. And I promise you, nothing is more painful than looking back and realizing you never gave yourself permission to just be you. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a wake-up call, because the truth is the world doesn't need another copy. It doesn't need you pretending to be perfect or trying to meet standards that were never meant for you. The world needs the real you, the raw, messy, powerful, of a kind version that no one else can ever replicate. And if you stay with me through this entire message, you'll discover what's been holding you back from living unapologetically as yourself. You'll unlock the keys to a kind of freedom that no amount of money, no level of success, and no external approval can ever buy. So don't just listen casually, lean in. Open your heart, open your mind, and by the time we're done, never again question the value of who you are. Think about it. How much of your life right now is being lived for you? And how much of it is being lived for someone else's approval? Be honest with yourself. You wake up in the morning and you make choices about your career, your relationships, your appearance, the way you speak, the way you show up in the world. How much of that is genuinely what you want? How much of it is designed to please somebody else? That's the silent trap so many people fall into. And the worst part is most of the time they don't even realize they're doing it. From the time we're children, we're conditioned. Think back. Parents telling you what you should become, teachers grading you not only on performance, but on conformity, society rewarding you for fitting neatly into the box. We're told what's acceptable, what's successful, what's admirable. If you step too far outside the lines, you're criticized, judged, maybe even rejected. That conditioning doesn't go away just because you grow up. No, it evolves, it grows more sophisticated. Now, it's not your parents, it's your peers, your coworkers, your social media followers. Now, it's likes, comments, applause, promotions, compliments, all of it whispering in your ear. Keep playing the game, keep being who we want you to be. And here's the danger. If you play that game long enough, you lose sight of who you really are. You bury your real self so deep beneath the layers of other people's expectations that one day you wake up and you don't even recognize the person in the mirror. You're exhausted, you're unfulfilled, and you don't know why. And it's because you've been living for their approval instead of your own truth. The brutal reality is no amount of approval will ever be enough. If you don't feel whole on the inside, 10,000 likes won't fill the hole. If you don't respect yourself, a standing ovation won't change the emptiness. Approval is like a drug. It gives you a hit of temporary validation, but the high fades quickly. And then you need more and more. That cycle keeps you trapped. You become addicted to being liked, but you never feel love for who you really are. Let me tell you something powerful. Every time you say yes to something just to be accepted, you're saying no to yourself. Every time you shrink who you are so someone else feels comfortable, you're betraying your own soul. And betrayal of self is the deepest wound you can carry. It doesn't matter how much you achieve on the outside. If you're not aligned on the inside, always feel empty. I've seen people live entire lives like this. People who had the money, the cars, the lifestyle, the admiration, but behind closed doors, they were miserable. Do you know why? Because they built their lives like a beautiful house on sand. It looked perfect from the outside, but inside it was crumbling because it wasn't built on authenticity. It wasn't built on their truth. It was built on the shaky ground of, what will they think of me? And the answer is, it doesn't matter what they think of you if you don't think highly of yourself. The greatest tragedy is when you sacrifice who you are for the illusion of being accepted and then realize those same people whose approval you fought for aren't even thinking about you anymore. People are busy with their own lives, their own insecurities, their own battles. They're not lying awake at night worrying about you, but you're losing sleep over them. You're holding yourself back because of them. You're delaying your own dreams, censoring your own truth, dimming your own light for them. In the end, it costs you everything while they don't even notice. So what's the alternative? The alternative is courage, the courage to stand tall and say, I'm done performing for everyone else. I'm going to live my life on my terms. I'm going to stop apologizing for being who I am. That's where freedom begins. That's where self-respect begins. When you make the shift from living for their applause to living for your own alignment, everything changes. Does that mean people will always like it? No. In fact, some people will dislike the real you because the real you might make them uncomfortable. But here's the secret. Those people were never meant to be in your life long-term anyway. Because the ones who are truly meant for you, the ones who truly love you, they don't need you to play a role. They want the unfiltered, unapologetic version of you. They don't just tolerate your authenticity. They celebrate it. And listen closely. You live for approval, you attract relationships based on performance. But when you live authentically, you attract relationships based on truth. One is fragile and temporary, the other is unshakable. You to ask yourself right now, what masks have you been wearing? Where in your life have you been shrinking just to keep others happy? And more importantly, what's it costing you? Because it is costing you. Maybe it's costing you your peace. Maybe it's costing you your health. Maybe it's costing you your confidence or your dreams. Whatever it is, I promise you this, whatever approval you think you're gaining is not worth the price you're paying. The time has come to decide. Do you want to live your life as a reflection of everyone else's expectations, or do you want to live as the fullest, truest expression of yourself? Because you can't have both. One path leads to mediocrity, to regret, to emptiness. The other path. It's not always easy, but it's real, it's alive, it's fulfilling. And that's the only kind of life worth living. So stop chasing their approval. You don't need it. You never did. Only approval you need is your own. Every single one of us has a story, a journey, a past filled with moments we're proud of and moments we wish we could erase. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Story isn't a burden. It's your greatest asset. The very experiences you've been running from, the ones you think disqualify you, are actually the very things that give you strength, depth, and power. So many people spend their lives trying to rewrite their history in their minds, pretending it didn't happen, hiding the scars, burying the pain. They think that by covering it up, they'll be free. But you're never free when you're hiding. You're never free when you're ashamed of where you've come from. You only find real freedom when you stand tall and say, yes, this is my story. This is what I've lived. And because of it, I am stronger, wiser, more unstoppable than ever. Think about it. Every trial, every heartbreak, every rejection, every failure, it shaped you. It carved resilience into your soul. It forced you to dig deeper, to fight harder, to discover parts of yourself you never would have met otherwise. Your struggles didn't come to destroy you. They came to prepare you. They gave you a perspective that no one else has. They gave you a voice that carries weight because it's not theory, it's truth. And when you own that, when you stop hiding from it and start standing on it, you become untouchable. The problem is most people want the success, the love, the respect, but they don't want the story that comes with it. They look at others and think, I wish I had their life, their opportunities, their luck. But they forget that behind every success story is a messy, painful, complicated history. Nobody gets to the mountaintop without walking through the valley. Nobody. If you're in the valley right now, I want you to hear me. This is not the end of your story. This is the chapter that will one day make the victory taste sweeter. This is the season that's building the muscles you'll need for the future you're walking into. You might not realize it yet, but there are people out there right now who need your story. They need your voice. They need your experience. They're waiting for someone who's been through the fire and come out on the other side, someone who can look them in the eyes and say, I've been there, and you can make it too. And if you hide your story, if you pretend it never happened, you rob the world of the hope and healing you could bring. Your story is your credibility. It's the proof that what you're saying isn't just empty words. It's the reason people will lean in when you speak, because they'll feel your truth. You can't fake authenticity. You can't manufacture raw lived experience. And that's why your story matters more than you think. The truth is, the very things you're embarrassed about right now might one day be the exact things that set you apart. Mistakes, the failures, the detours, they're part of your DNA. They make you relatable. They make you human. They make you real. And being real will take you further than being perfect ever could. People don't connect to perfection. They connect to honesty, to struggle, to courage. And here's something I want you to never forget. Your story is not your identity, but it is your power. What happened to you is not who you are, but it is the soul that has grown who you are becoming. Too many people confuse the two. They get stuck saying, this is just who I am because of what I've been through. No. What you've been through is the reason you have the strength to break cycles, to rise higher, to rewrite the future. Use your story as an excuse. Use it as evidence of what you're capable of. You've got to stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. Stop looking at their highlight reels and feeling like your life doesn't measure up. You don't know the full story behind their smiles, just like they don't know the weight behind yours. The only story that matters is yours. And when you embrace it fully, when you stop apologizing for it, you begin to walk in a power that can't be shaken by anyone else's opinion. You see, the people who change the world aren't the ones who hide their scars. They're the ones who reveal them and show others that healing is possible. They're the ones who take their pain and turn it into purpose. They're the ones who take their setbacks and turn them into comebacks. They're the ones who refuse to be defined by what happened to them and instead choose to be defined by what they decided to do with it. And that choice is available to you right now. You can keep running from your past, or you can embrace it. You can keep pretending to be someone else, or you can stand boldly in who you are. You can keep wishing your life was different, or you can realize that every single thing you've gone through has brought you to this exact moment. This moment has the potential to change everything. Your story is not over. You are still writing it. And the pages ahead can be greater than anything that's behind you if you choose to own what's already been written. Stop hiding from it. Stop being ashamed of it. Stop minimizing it, because when you fully embrace your unique story, when you decide to let it empower you instead of imprison you, that's when you unlock a level of confidence, authenticity, strength that nothing and no one can take away. So don't run from your story. Run with it. One of the greatest thieves of joy in this world is comparison. And the reason it's so deadly is because it sneaks up on you without you even realizing it. You wake up, you pick up your phone, and within 5 minutes, you're already drowning in the illusion of what everybody else is doing. Someone's on vacation in a tropical paradise. Someone just closed a huge deal. Someone's celebrating their anniversary, posting perfect pictures with perfect smiles. And you're sitting there thinking, why isn't my life like that? What's wrong with me? But here's the truth, comparison is a game you can never win, because you're always comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. You're stacking your insecurities against their best angles, your struggles against their victories, your process against their results. It's not even a fair fight, and yet you keep playing it, and every time you lose, let me ask you something. How much of your energy, your joy, your peace has been stolen because you were too busy measuring your life against somebody else's? How many opportunities have you missed because you were convinced you weren't good enough compared to the next person? How many times have you doubted yourself, not because you couldn't do it, because you saw someone else doing it and assumed they were better, smarter, stronger? The reality is comparison blinds you to your own greatness. It distracts you from your own lane. Imagine a runner in a race who keeps turning their head to see where everyone else is. What happens? They slow down, they stumble, they lose focus. Not because they weren't capable of winning, because they wasted their energy looking sideways instead of forward. That's what comparison does to you. It keeps you stuck, chasing a moving target that was never meant for you in the first place. Here's something most people never stop to consider. When you're comparing yourself to others, you're not even comparing the truth. You're comparing an illusion. Because the picture you see online, the story you hear in passing, that's not the full reality. That's the curated, filtered version of their life. You don't see the nights they cried themselves to sleep. You don't see the arguments, the failures, the doubts, the breakdowns. You see the performance, the final product, the part they chose to show. And then you hold yourself hostage to a fantasy. That's insanity. The only person you should be comparing yourself to is the version of you from yesterday. Are you growing? Are you learning? You becoming stronger, wiser, more authentic? That's the only standard that matters. Because when you shift your focus inward, when you decide that your only competition is the person you were yesterday, you begin to build momentum. You stop playing a game you can't win and start building a life you can be proud of. Think about it. Every single person in this room has a different story, a different journey, a different set of strengths and weaknesses. You weren't designed to live someone else's life. You weren't meant to fit into their mold. Your timeline is yours. Your pace is yours. Your calling is yours. Trying to copy someone else is like planting an oak tree and then getting mad that it doesn't grow roses. You weren't built for their path. You were built for yours. And when you finally get that, when you truly embrace it, you stop feeling threatened by other people's success. You stop feeling inadequate when you see someone else winning. Instead, you can celebrate it. You can look at them and say, if they can do it, it's possible for me too. Their success becomes proof of possibility, not proof of your insufficiency. That's the shift. That's when comparison loses its grip on you. But I get it. It's easier said than done, right? You've been wired since childhood to compare. You've been graded, ranked, judged, measured your entire life. But just because it's a habit doesn't mean it has to be your destiny. You can retrain your mind. You can decide right now that you will no longer give your power away to this endless cycle of better than and less than. And let's be honest, comparison is exhausting. It's like carrying a backpack full of rocks every single day, adding more and more weight each time you see someone else doing something you're not. Eventually, you're crushed under the pressure of trying to keep up. But you weren't born to keep up. You were born to stand out. You weren't born to run the race. You were born to win your own. Imagine how free you would feel if you stopped comparing altogether. Imagine waking up and only caring about whether you're aligned with your values. You're honoring your potential, whether you're living authentically. Imagine the peace of mind, the clarity, the energy you'd reclaim. That's what happens when you break the chains of comparison. You stop trying to be better than them. You start trying to be the best version of you. And let me tell you something powerful. The moment you stop comparing, you give yourself permission to be fully alive. You give yourself permission to explore, to fail, to learn, to grow without the constant pressure of measuring up. That's when creativity flows. That's when confidence grows. That's when joy returns. Because you're no longer looking outward for validation. You're looking inward for alignment. So I want you to ask yourself right now, where in your life are you still trapped by comparison? Is it in your career, your relationships, your appearance, your achievements? Wherever it is, it's time to break free, because comparison will only chain you down, but authenticity will set you free. Stop looking sideways. Stop measuring your worth against someone else's scoreboard. Your race is your own. Your story is your own. Your only mission is to run it with everything you've got. So break the chains of comparison and finally step fully into the freedom of being you. When you strip everything away, the money, the titles, the possessions really determines the quality of your life, is whether or not you're living in alignment with your values. Because values are the compass. They're the invisible force that guide every decision, shape every relationship. ultimately define whether you feel fulfilled or empty. The problem is most people never stop long enough to even ask themselves what their values really are. They live according to what they were taught, what society rewarded, what seemed convenient in the moment, and then they wonder why they feel restless, disconnected, or lost. It's not that they don't work hard. It's not that they don't achieve. Some of the most successful people in the world, people who seem to have it all together on the outside, are the most miserable on the inside. And the reason is simple. They climbed the ladder, but the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. They reached the top only to realize the life they built didn't reflect who they truly were. That's what happens when your actions don't line up with your values. No amount of money, status, achievement can fill the emptiness of living a life that doesn't feel authentic to your soul. So let me ask you, what do you really value? Not what your parents told you to value, not what your culture said should matter, what looks impressive to others. I mean, deep down in your heart, what matters most to you? Is it love, growth, freedom, integrity, faith, contribution, adventure, honesty? Whatever it is, you've got to get clear on it, because until you do, you're building your life on quicksand. When your values are unclear, you live in constant conflict. You say yes when you want to say no. You pursue goals that look good but don't feel good. You stay in relationships, careers, situations that look safe but feel suffocating. And little by little, that conflict eats away at your confidence, your joy, your peace of mind. But when your values are crystal clear and you align your life with them, everything changes. You stop second guessing yourself. Decisions become easier. You feel lighter, freer, more confident, because you know you're being true to who you are. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who values freedom more than anything else. They build a life where they're trapped in obligations, locked in routines they hate, stuck in commitments that suffocate them. On the outside, they might look responsible. They might even be praised for it. But on the inside, they're dying a little every day. Now imagine the opposite, someone who values contribution above all else, but spends their life chasing wealth, status, or recognition. They may achieve, but they'll always feel something missing because they're not feeding the part of them that matters most. Living in alignment doesn't mean life is always easy. It doesn't mean you won't face challenges or tough decisions. What it means is that when you face those moments, you'll have clarity. You'll know which path to take because you'll know what matters most to you. It means that no matter what life throws your way, you'll have an anchor that keeps you grounded. Let's be real, it takes courage to live this way. It takes courage to say, I don't care what looks good on the outside. I don't care what everyone else thinks I should do. I'm going to build a life that reflects my truth. Because the moment you start living by your values, you might lose some approval. You might walk away from things that other people think are successful. You might make choices that don't make sense to anyone else. But that's the price of authenticity. And in the end, the only approval that matters is your own. The irony is that when you live aligned with your values, you not only gain peace, but you also gain power. Because you stop wasting energy on conflict. You stop living in confusion. You stop battling with yourself. Instead, your energy is focused, your actions are consistent, and your presence carries weight because people can sense when someone is living true. They can feel when your words and your life match. That kind of alignment creates trust. It creates influence. It creates impact. Here's the beautiful thing. Your values don't just shape your own life, they shape how you show up for others. When you live authentically, you give permission for others to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your integrity becomes a mirror that challenges others to rise, and slowly but surely, you don't just change your life, you change the environment around you. But this won't happen by accident. It's not automatic. You've got to take the time to define your values. Write them down. Get specific. Ask yourself, what really matters most to me? What do I want my life to stand for? If everything else were stripped away, would still give my life meaning? And then once you know them, measure your life against them. Look at your relationships, your career, your habits, your goals, and ask, are these aligned with my values? Are they pulling me away from them? That's where the shift begins. The truth is, every single day you're either moving closer to alignment or further away from it. Every yes, every no. Every choice you make is either strengthening your foundation or weakening it. That's why this isn't something you do once. It's a daily practice. It's waking up every morning and choosing to live in a way that honors who you are, who others want you to be. And listen, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have moments where you fall out of alignment. That's part of being human. The key is to recognize it quickly and realign. Don't beat yourself up. Stay stuck. Just adjust and keep moving forward, because living in alignment isn't about perfection. It's about direction. It's about constantly coming back to your center, your truth, your values. When you do that, you make alignment the foundation of your life. Everything else falls into place. You'll stop chasing a life that looks right and start building a life that feels right. And that's the kind of life that brings peace, fulfillment, unshakable confidence. So live in alignment with your values, because without it, nothing will ever feel like enough, but with it, you'll finally feel free. Most of us spend our lives doing everything we can to avoid looking weak. We put on masks, we hide our fears, we bury our insecurities, and we walk through the world with this polished image we hope will protect us from judgment. But the truth is, what you're hiding is the very thing that makes you powerful. Vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is strength. It's the courage to show up as you really are without the guarantee of acceptance, without the guarantee of applause. That's real power. Think about it. Anybody can wear a mask. Anybody can project confidence, pretend they've got it all together, put up a wall so no one sees the cracks. But that's not real strength. That's performance. Real strength is when you drop the performance and say, this is me. Flaws, scars, doubts, fears, all of it. Take it or leave it. That takes guts. That takes more courage than any act of pretending ever could. We live in a world where vulnerability is often seen as dangerous. People think if they reveal too much, they'll be judged, rejected, taken advantage of. Yes, there's always a risk. But here's the paradox. When you hide who you are, you may protect yourself from judgment, but you also block yourself from connection. You can't truly connect with someone while wearing a mask. People don't bond with your perfection. They bond with your humanity. They bond with your struggles, your truth, your honesty. The more walls you build, the lonelier you become. And let's be real. No one connects with perfection anyway. You ever notice how you admire someone's success, but you fall in love with their story? You admire their achievements, but what makes you trust them is their authenticity. When they talk about the nights they failed, the moments they doubted themselves, the times they got knocked down and didn't know if they could get back up, that's when you lean in. That's when you feel something. Why? Because it's real. It's raw. It reminds you that you're not alone in your own struggles. Vulnerability is the bridge that connects us. Too many people are exhausted because they're living their lives like actors in a play, constantly performing, constantly trying to hold everything together. When you give yourself permission to be vulnerable, you get to breathe. You get to be human. You don't have to pretend anymore. And that freedom creates energy. It creates space for deeper love, deeper trust, deeper fulfillment. Now let's talk about what vulnerability really is. Vulnerability is not dumping your entire life story on everyone you meet. It's not about oversharing or seeking pity. Vulnerability is about honesty. It's about choosing to show up authentically even when it's uncomfortable. It's about saying, I don't have all the answers, or I'm scared, but I'm still moving forward. It's about telling the truth when lying would be easier, asking for help when pride tells you not to, admitting you made a mistake instead of covering it up. Those are vulnerable moments, and those moments are where true courage lies. The reason vulnerability is so powerful is because it disarms fear. When you expose what you're afraid others will see, loses its grip on you. The things you're most ashamed of often hold the most control over you. But the moment you own them, the moment you say, yes, this is part of me, they lose their power. Shame can't survive in the light. Vulnerability is the act of bringing your truth into the light. And in doing so, you take back your power. Some of you have been hiding behind walls for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be truly seen. You've built this image of strength, but deep down you're tired. You're tired of holding it all together, tired of pretending, tired of acting like you're fine when you're not. Maybe the reason you feel so heavy is because you're carrying a weight you were never meant to carry alone. Vulnerability is putting it down. It's saying, here's where I'm at. Here's what's real for me right now. And in that honesty, you give yourself the chance to heal. And make no mistake, vulnerability is not just about relationships with others. It's also about the relationship you have with yourself. Can you be honest with yourself about where you're at? Can you admit when you're hurting, when you're struggling, when you're lost? Because if you can't be vulnerable with yourself, you'll never be able to be vulnerable with others. Self-deception is the greatest barrier to growth. Self-honesty, that's the starting point of transformation. And here's the most powerful part. When you lead with vulnerability, you give others permission to do the same. You become a safe space. You create an environment where truth can exist. People can take off their own masks and finally be real. Imagine what that does for a marriage, a friendship, a family, a team. When vulnerability is present, trust is built. And when trust is built, everything is possible. You want deeper love. Vulnerability is the key. You want stronger relationships. Vulnerability is the key. You want real leadership, the kind that inspires people to follow you, not out of obligation, but out of respect and loyalty. Vulnerability is the key. People don't follow titles. They don't follow bravado. They follow authenticity. They follow someone who's real enough to admit their humanity while still courageous enough to keep moving forward. So stop seeing vulnerability as a weakness and start seeing it as your greatest strength. Stop hiding your scars and start realizing they are proof that you survived, proof that you're still here, proof that you're stronger than what tried to break you. Your scars aren't ugly. They're beautiful because they tell the story of resilience. They're reminders, they're minders that you've been through the fire and came out the other side. Don't be afraid to be seen. Don't be afraid to be heard. Be afraid to be known, because when you finally embrace vulnerability, you discover a level of strength you never knew you had. So drop the mask, open your heart, let your vulnerability become the very thing that makes you unstoppable. So many people out there are living lives that look amazing on the outside, but feel miserable on the inside. They've got the house, the car, the clothes, the career, the image. They've built a life that photographs beautifully, a life that gets the compliments and the nods of approval. But when the noise quiets down and they're alone at night, they feel this emptiness inside. And the reason is simple. They've been building a life to impress others instead of building a life that actually fulfills them. You know what that is? That's slavery. That's selling your soul to perception, trading your truth for appearances. And I promise you, no matter how good it looks, if it doesn't feel right, it will never satisfy you. You'll spend your life chasing the next thing, the next achievement, the next purchase, thinking, this will do it. This will finally make me happy. But it never does, because happiness doesn't come from how it looks. It comes from how it feels. Think about this. How many people you know look like they've made it, but behind the curtain, they're exhausted, they're anxious, they're unfulfilled. See it all the time. Celebrities with all the money in the world, executives at the top of their industries, influencers with millions of followers. And yet they're drowning in depression, addiction, loneliness. Why? Because success without authenticity is empty. It's a house built without a foundation. And eventually it all comes crashing down. You've got to ask yourself the hard question, am I building a life that feels good to me? Just a life that looks good to others? That question takes courage. Because if you're honest, you might realize that some of the things you've been chasing aren't even yours. They're someone else's definition of success that you adopted without thinking. You're following a script that was handed to you instead of writing your own. Let me tell you, there's nothing more liberating than tearing up that old script and saying, I refuse to live for appearances anymore. I refuse to sacrifice my peace, my joy, my authenticity just so the world can clap. I'm going to live a life that feels right for me. That doesn't mean it'll always look perfect from the outside. It might not make sense to everyone, but when it feels right in your heart, when it's aligned with your values, it matches your truth. That's when you experience real fulfillment. See, the danger of chasing a life that only looks right is that you're constantly outsourcing your happiness. You're handing your power over to other people's opinions. If they approve, you're happy. If they don't, you're crushed. That's not freedom. That's bondage. But when you build a life that feels right, you reclaim that power. You stop living for their applause and you start living for your own peace. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress people and start living authentically, that's when you actually become magnetic. That's when people are drawn to you. Not because you're perfect, not because you're polished, because you're real. People crave realness, they crave authenticity. And when you live a life that feels good to you, that energy radiates outward. It inspires others. It attracts the right opportunities, the right relationships, the right environment. It starts with you being brutally honest. What are the areas in your life right now that look good but don't feel good? Is it your job? Is it your relationship? Is it your lifestyle? You've got to be willing to ask those questions. And then you've got to be brave enough to take action. Maybe it means walking away from something that looks safe but feels suffocating. Maybe it means saying no to something that everyone else thinks you should say yes to. Maybe it means choosing a simpler life that actually brings you peace over a flashy life that leaves you drained. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting success, wealth, recognition. There's nothing wrong with wanting the nice house, the car, the lifestyle. The problem comes when you pursue those things at the cost of your soul. The problem comes when you think the image is the goal instead of the byproduct. When your pursuit is rooted in alignment. When it's about contribution, freedom, love, then success enhances your life instead of replacing your fulfillment. The truth is, a life that feels right is deeply personal. For one person, it might be raising a family in a small town, living quietly but with deep love and connection. For another, it might be building a global empire, impacting millions of people. For someone else, it might be traveling the world with a backpack, experiencing adventure and freedom. There's no universal formula. The only thing that matters is whether or not it feels true to you. You can't live your best life while trying to live someone else's dream. You can't feel fulfilled while chasing goals that don't belong to you. And you'll never know peace until you give yourself permission to live in alignment with what's real for you. So I want you to imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you stripped away the pressure of appearances. Imagine if you stopped asking, what will people think? And started asking, what will make me proud? What will make me feel alive? What will bring me peace? Imagine if every choice you made was based on how it aligned with your soul instead of how it looked on the surface. That's when everything changes. That's when life stops being a performance and starts being an experience. Because at the end of the day, nobody remembers how perfect your Instagram feed looked. Nobody cares how expensive your watch was or how big your house was. What they remember is your presence, your energy, your love, the impact you left, the way you lived. And you'll remember too, when you're at the end of your life, you won't be asking, did it look good? You'll be asking, did it feel real? Did it feel true? Did I live authentically? Did I just perform? And my hope is that you can answer that question with a full heart, that you can look back with peace knowing you didn't waste your life chasing images and illusions, but that you lived in truth, you lived in alignment, you lived in a way that felt good to your soul. So stop building a life that only looks good and start creating a life that feels right.